Alright, so I got the proper screws that I was missing. So now we're on to round 2 of my LRB door card install. I'm going to go ahead and make this a tutorial for anybody else who wants to install LRB door cards, as the directions are a little vague. It's kind of a, if you have mechanical knowledge and you know what the hell you're doing, it's not really that hard to figure out. But for some of the more nubile folks, the brackets and shit are kind of weird, so it is kind of odd. I will give you a few pointers to start off. Like, for instance, make sure you have the strap and all 3 bolts in this before you tighten any of the bolts down, because I accidentally tightened one of the bolts down before putting the strap in, and I stripped it. So I had to cut the fucking bolt out, which is why, part of the reason why I was short some bolts. Also, make sure you have a razor handy. Makes it easier to cut this shit. I just kind of tore it, which I wouldn't suggest. This shit's here for a reason. Also, make sure you have some, like, panel removal tools and shit, because getting your switches out of the door panel is a massive pain in the ass, and it's a hell of a lot easier if you have panel removal tools. Now, Now, for those of you who don't know, removing the door panel itself is pretty easy. There are 3 screws in it. One is in the door handle and lock right here. It's like right around in the middle. And then you've got 2 other screws, one right here in the door handle. And the plastic cover comes off pretty fucking easy. Just pry it with a screwdriver. You start here, pry it off with a screwdriver, and then it just pops out. And then you've got one pop rivet, plastic pop rivet right there. And then the whole door panel, you just tug on it real gently and it comes off. Oh, shit. As for the door card, as you can see, I've got my switches in. This weird looking bracket right here is meant to hold your window switches. This one's for the passenger side, obviously, because I have the driver's side installed already. There's another smaller panel that goes for your window switch. It goes over the top of the window switch, and then you push the assembly through the back of the panel. I don't have the second bolt in because I had to use it for reference to size the bolts I had to get. I'm probably going to do this in several portions because it's going to be a pain in the ass to try and record what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So, let's see if we can do this. Oh. There we go. That ought to do. Now, make sure you've got an 8mm wrench handy, and I don't exactly know what size this is, but it's a hex bit, and I'm just using a T-handle screwdriver. Not everything on these things is 100% exact, but they get it pretty close. It's pretty decent. They could do a little bit better on their sizing, like with the stamped out pieces, like the brackets for the window switches and shit. But for what you pay for these panels, it's not really that bad. For people really looking for door cards, I might suggest Street Faction Engineering, mainly because they do 3D scans of some of the parts that they plan on making. Like, they'll 3D scan the original door panel, and then they will run that through a CAD system and use that to design some of their parts. That's why their tolerances and everything on what they make, like their chassis mount wing, that's why their tolerances are relatively tight. FRS Engineering also uses 3D scanning when they make their parts, and I gotta say, it's a fantastic process to witness, and it also allows, again, for really tight tolerances. Now, because this stuff is aluminum, and because they provide you with lock nuts, nylon lock nuts, you don't really have to crank the shit down. You just gotta, like, snug it up. I'm pretty much ready to put the panel on now, unless I need the plastic trim from the door. Let's see what their vague directions say. For the window trim, there's a few tricks required. Is held on to the OEM door panel via several folded over tabs and about 5 rivets. You'll need to bend the tabs back straight so it may be removed from the panel and drill all the rivets out so it may come off. Once it's off, it's advised that the deformed parts of the trim from the rivets and drilling be deburred, as they'll otherwise make the trim not sit flush against the aluminum door panel. Following this, you'll simply transfer it to the aluminum door panel in the same orientation it was the OEM unit and secure it via the folded tabs. I'm assuming that's what these slots on the back end are for. And I'm not going to bother with that shit, because eventually this will be a full-on race car. No need for that BS. Now, I'm going to attach the plugs. I'm assuming if you know anything about cars, you know how to attach a few electrical plugs. I will say, too, if your garage is dirty like mine, make sure you have some cleaner and degreaser, so that way you can keep your panel nice and bright. Fishing the first full strap through. Let's see. There we go. I wonder what the fuck's that's for. I don't know. Another thing that I realize in the middle of this install that I'm not too happy about. Some of the bends they make, I'm sure they do it with a brake. Not all that great. Like, I'm probably going to have to tap the top of this with a hammer to make it fit 100%. But again, I'm not worried about that, so I'm going to make it fit to the best of my abilities and secure everything as tightly as I can and call it a day. Because I have to be back at work tonight, so I don't have a whole lot of time to spend on this. But it's pretty fucking straightforward. There's not a whole lot to it. I know one of the machine screws goes through this hole right here. I'm sure you guys can see that. This little guy. To secure one of these straps so you can pull the door closed, because this strap is for opening the door. You pull this strap forward, it opens the door. The only downside is, and I don't know why it's a downside, because I never lock my doors from the inside anyway, you cannot lock your doors from the inside with this switch. You can do it with a power lock switch, you can do it with your key fob, but there's no switch anymore on either door. I mean, I don't necessarily know what kind of psycho fucking locks their doors from the inside anyway. I mean, unless you're sleeping in your car, and if you own an FRS, you already know these bitches ain't that comfortable to sleep in. I slept in mine a couple hours before work one time. As fuck, I was already at work. I was already in the vicinity of work anyway. My job at the time was an hour away from my house, so no point in going home to sleep for an hour and then drive an hour back to work. And trust me, I felt it afterwards. Now, time for the push rivets. If I have all my holes and everything lined up. It says nothing about the speakers. And from what I can assume, it looks like you might have to move the speakers back a hair to get the fucking pop rivets in. Alright then, well that's the only thing I have left to do really is apparently I have to remove this spacer that holds the damn speaker in, and then I've got to put these pop rivets in the holes. There's four, let's say 4 of them per door, five per door, 4 on the bottom and then 1 up there just above the speaker. It's pretty fucking basic, but some of the shit is kind of a pain in the ass. The biggest pain in the ass is getting the door panel off and getting your switches mounted, because switches are a pain in the ass to remove from the trim. As a matter of fact, I broke the clips on the trim for the switches trying to get them out. So that's the biggest pains in the ass. And then, like I said, you know, the instructions are so damn vague. You gotta kind of play it by ear a little bit. Like I said, I didn't know. They have nothing in the instructions about the white spacer plate for the panel, so for the speaker. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and remove that. Yeah, this thing's got Rockford Fosgate speakers in it. Didn't know that. But I'm gonna have to remove that to get the fucking speaker back far enough to put the panel on. But that's that.